This is Zettelcast, brought to you by readers, writers, thinkers, and teachers from LiLLiPub, along with our partners in thought, our Zettelkastens. In this show, we share discoveries that our Zettelkastens have shown us.
There you go.
And compare notes on how we're using this marvelous invention in our creative work. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Book.
Let's do it again.
All right.
Episode 58, Forming Connections.
Hello, and welcome to the Zettelcast. I'm Kathleen Spracklin, your host today, and with me are all of the wonderful members of our Zettelcast, except Deb, who couldn't be with us today. So we have Julianne and Victoria and Mel. And when I'm a host, I generally prefer to give writing assignments. That's what the host gets to do. They get to set the challenge for the week. And I'm enjoying our Roanoke story so much that I love to see it move along. And so with each of us writing individual pieces of the story, the question comes up, when and where are our characters going to start meeting one another and interacting? And so that was the assignment for this week, is that each of us was to take one of our characters and pull in a character from somebody else's story and have them interact. We didn't want them acting out of character, so we did a pre-draft, sent it over to the other person so that they could review it and say, yes, possibly, but maybe change this to this. And then we would have something that was in keeping with the voice of the character that they interacted with. So consequently, we have 4 stories to share with you today. So isn't that going to be fun? Who wants to start?
Well, I will go first.
go.
Since
All right.
I have actually
Okay.
done the writing this time, which is pretty cool. This was a really fun assignment, and it forced me to actually think through and try to write the meeting between Sis Cleanup we've met, who is, we don't know her real name yet, but she cloaks herself as a utility on the link, and she's our little hacker girl who is going around collecting all of the discarded information. And this is when she actually meets Teresita. She's observed Teresita before and been very mystified by, she's not sure if it's a person or a program, but it is talking to the other programs like they are people. So that is very confusing to her, and she doesn't like anything new. She's very paranoid, so she's really bothered by having seen that. And so the story starts right after she jumps out of the link, having collected what she was going to collect and being scared by seeing Teresita, although that she doesn't know what that was yet. So are we reading our stories? Mine's a couple pages, so it's a little bit on the long side.
Yes,
Go for it.
Okay. So she's back in her lair, wherever that is. Sis Cleanup ran her decontamination protocols on the new batch of data with only half her mind. She was still shaken by the close encounter with the entity that seemed to be talking to the basic system functions. The protocol reached completion, and the pseudo link pinged her mind with a notification. "Let's see what the day's catch is," she said. There wasn't anyone there to hear her anymore, but she said it anyway. Most of the data was the usual trash, accidental vows, thoughts that were too rude to transmit, and some juicy gossip that she set aside for later. A large chunk of it, though, was something she'd never seen before. It was tagged as accidental vow, but rather than the usual quickly rescinded thoughts or even the ramblings of the self-absorbed and oblivious, it was gigasign after gigasign of raw perception. It seemed hardly more than random noise, but it was oddly compelling. Sis Cleanup shook her head. 2 bizarre incidences or experiences in one day. She felt like she was missing something obvious, and she did not like that feeling one bit. The long, stressful day was catching up with her. She set the pseudo-link to a background hum, playing the unusual static on repeat. She'd let her mind work on the problem while she slept. She chased shimmering threads through her dreams. Over and over, they turned to mist and disappeared, only to drift into view again just out of reach. There was a kind of rhythm to it, though, almost a dance. At first, she only caught a few beats at a time, but then she began to slip into the rhythm. Gradually, instead of chasing the strands, she began to appear in the same places, only seconds later. The seconds became milliseconds, and then, finally, she appeared just before the strand, and her hands closed over it before it could escape. With a gasp, Sis Cleanup launched herself out of bed. The entity and the static were both the same somehow. She replayed her memory with this new understanding. Yes, the entity was less concentrated, but the rhythm was the same. She fed the pattern of the entity into the pseudolink and applied it as a filter to the unknown static. Immediately, the static resolved into an emotion, pure wonder and delight. The pseudolink reached the end of the data set, and Sis Cleanup realized she was sitting on the floor with tears streaming down her face. The room felt dreary and oppressive in comparison. The years of isolation and loneliness were nearly physical in their weight on her mind. How long had it been since she had felt anything like that open-hearted delight? Had she ever? She had to know more, had to find out what this entity was. A tiny, dry voice in the corner of her mind warned her that this could be a trap, a snare set by the link to lure her in and capture her, but the desire drowned it out. Sis Cleanup hastily donned the cloaking protocols that would make her look like any other utility program and then dove back into the underbelly of the link. She found the entity almost immediately. As she made a show of collecting floating scraps of discarded data, she carefully watched what it was doing. Gradually, the pattern revealed itself to her. It's a loop. Perceptions and emotions cascaded out of the entity into the thou of the link, but were promptly collected by scavenger apps and transported to SysClean, the brain of the recycling utility. Somehow, SysClean seemed to think that the entity was just another cleanup subroutine and was assigning concentrated gigasins signs of the entity's own output to it for final deletion. But whatever the entity received, it fountained right back out into the thou. SysCleanup could not fathom the purpose of such a feedback loop. She'd never seen anything like it before in any of her undercover rummagings through the link. Without quite realizing what she was doing, she drifted closer to it. The entity noticed her approach. A first tentative tendril of emotion went right through the pseudolink defenses and touched SysCleanup directly. A flood of perceptions poured through the breach. She saw the world, bright and confusing and wonderful and dizzying. Events danced and flowed and connected in unexpected ways. Each impossibility melted into another like the Mobius strip her father had made for her when she was small. Just as she felt she could not bear another second of the flux, the experience vanished. She snapped back to her own senses as the remains of her utility disguise floated away to be collected by scavenger apps. In front of her was the entity, now clearly a girl, and shining brighter than ever before. Only one word remained of the entire overwhelming experience. Teresita, she whispered. Hesitantly, the girl replied, Rosemary, and she smiled.
Oh, now I want to go hang out in Mel's head.
Oh, it was chaos. It was utter chaos. I had my notepad in front of me and I'm frantically writing, and then I'm thinking, oh, that connects here. And I've got piles of note cards scattered around trying to make note of the connections I was making, and it was chaos.
Awesome.
It was wonderful chaos, but it was chaos.
That's awesome.
Fabulous.
I was very touching.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Even for such a short piece.
Yeah. I love the way you got it all to make system programming, detective work sense. You resolved it all into something that would have otherwise seemed so improbable
Mhm.
that it was just a relentless narrowing of the feed And filtering, filtering, filtering.
Yeah.
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 I look
It
forward.
rings really true from that perspective also. Yes.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. I do have some computer science background, but it's pretty old and not all that deep. So I'm glad to hear that it is ringing true in that
Yeah.
sense.
Wow.
That was good. I can go next because mine could either come before or after Kathleen's.
Uh-huh.
So mine's just a page. So I'll go first and we can decide if it's a
Sure.
keeper and if it goes before or after. This is called Alex Seeks Hobby.
Oh.
Alex sat alone on the garden patio with the shoebox-sized Zettelkasten and pulled all of the unlined note cards that had patterns made of individual dots. She laid them in a grid on the table. She let her gaze soften so the dots ran together in lazy swirls and erratic lines. Something about it made sense, but the meaning was just out of reach. She tried to remember the last time she felt like she understood. That's when she remembered Javi. Hello! Alex riffled the note cards like a playing card deck as she shouldered open the door to the artifacts area. It had been forever since she'd been in the sub-basements. The smell of things past transported her to places she'd never seen or been to, but that she had a longing for. Is anyone here? She peered around books and boxes, but didn't see anyone. She looked at a note card with her carefully written script. See Javi. Okay, she was here to see Javi, but he obviously was not being seen by her. She tucked the cards into her jacket pocket and decided to snoop around. Her eyes settled on a handsome multi-drawer cabinet whose most striking feature was the absence of its drawers. Looks like you lost your marbles there, buddy. She ran her hand along the gaping maws where drawers had been. But where'd they go? She continued to wander along the wall where a series of weathered maps caught her attention. Each one had been framed and hung in a line down the wall. She used her index finger to trace orbital systems with thin lines of trajectory and circling spirals. The faded watercolor blues and greens drew her in. As she moved to the next one, a faint sense of déjà vu washed over her. Pencil-drawn pictures of animals covered in an oval sky. A lion, a bull, a crab, each rendered carefully in dots with the utmost attention to economy of space. Alex pulled her note cards from her pocket and shuffled through. None were an exact match, but this seemed monumentally important. Her mind circled the airport of meaning as her stomach rumbled in protest against all of the energy being expended on this puzzle. Lunch. Maybe she'd find Javi in the lunchroom. So hopefully, since I decorated your wall, it's okay.
It works. It works. I think I'll have to discuss how it works in the spoiler zone, but yeah,
Cool.
it works.
Ooh. Oh.
So Kathleen, you know what you've written, and you know what I've written.
Uh-huh.
You overlap with Javi, and I
Uh-huh.
overlap with Teresita. What do you think works better in terms of?
Well, we just had we started with a Teresita and a Javi. Now, how about a Teresita and a Javi?
Okay, okay. So just to set a little preamble, where does this come? In episode 39 called Herd in the Henge, there was a scene between Sunny and Chris in the Epiphany Taffy, which is like a big lobby of the Henge. And they're talking about the Bézier belt that Sunny gave Chris as a gift, which was a big hit at the building of Chris's sister's home. And Chris is flabbergasted that it can even be made by a person. He thought this was just ancient craft that is very rare. And Sonny says, well, it is very rare. Uh, there's a way to go about it, and most people don't do that. And so he explained that the way that he goes about it, the way he learned how to do this was from something called the vessel, which is like a show. It's like a broadcast that happens in Lydia. And Sonny's mother, Dee is her name, is a producer of the show. And it's a long time running show. Chris hasn't listened to it in years or heard it, watched it, whatever it is. And but Sonny kind of grew up with it. And not only did he grow up with the show, he grew up with all the raw feed. And so there was this episode called he doesn't remember he doesn't know what Dee called the episode, and he kind of doesn't even want to know. But it's about net weaving, where the character Sam, who's kind of the father in this show, sits down with his son Bala and says, "It's time you learn net weaving, son." And he gives Bala the preliminaries. Sonny learned how to follow along with that. And then, having access to the raw feed, he has the raw feed of Bala working by himself on it. That was never broadcast. Then, a little bit later in the story, it becomes clear, well, maybe some other people want to actually know how to make these things. And Sonny says, I don't know what to tell you. This is how I learned it. But in the story heard in the Henge, he says to Chris, Bala will narrate every little thing that's going on in his mind. People have no idea what the raw feed from this kid is like. All right, so that's that setup. And there's also a little setup to be written. In my view, it comes before this, where the reader is going to know something that Sonny doesn't know. And that is that somehow Teresita has been pointed toward this net weaving series. So that's the big preamble. Here we go. The story is called Engagement. Sonny sat down to his work table with a nervous stomach and a warm drink. The early returns were in for the premiere. Dee had given it the title, Net Weaving, Never Before Seen Features. Better than outtakes, I guess, Sonny thought. This was what Dee had called an interleaved transcript. Bala's actual words, lightly formatted for legibility, dominated. Time coding could be retrieved on instant demand. The interleaving part was the engagement data. Engagement data was, of course, available in analytic form without the content. That was what Dee and most successful content creators focused on after release, level and quality of engagement over time. Sonny wanted to read the interleaved version. He supposed it was because he wasn't ready to begin thinking of net weaving and Bala through a purely analytic lens. He began scanning the transcript. He knew Bala's words by heart, but he rode the rhythm until he hit the first reaction. Hello, finger. Hello, strand. Hello, hue, 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 hue. Hello, shapes. Hello, feel, feel of home. Strand, hello. Do you know this shape? Does this shape feel of home? No? Hello, feel, feel of home. Strand, hello. Do you know this shape? Does this shape feel of home? No? Hello, feel, feel of home. Strand, hello. Do you know this shape? Does this shape feel of home? Yes? Home, home, home you go, Strand. Home you go, home you go. Hello, Finger. Hello, Strand. Hello, Hugh, 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 Hugh. Hello, Shapes. The first reaction came right here. There's a one-line engagement summary in the transcript. Sonny inferred this to be the first indicator of a cluster of similar audience behavior and underlying sentiment scores. He wasn't sure how to read most of it, but he could see a big drop in viewership in and around that moment. The sentiment was paraphrased. Who can possibly stand this? Seeing that, Sonny felt a little angry and heartbroken. It wasn't fair. But at the same time, he couldn't blame them. He'd had a lot of time to get used to Bala. A lot. Was he the only Ling who could hear and follow Bala's infinitely patient example? If so, this net weaving project was doomed. Following Bala, really following Bala, was, for Sonny anyway, what had made the whole thing click. He continued scanning through the transcript, finding more viewers dropping. Sentiment ranged according to the paraphrases along a narrow spectrum characterizing disengagement. Does this kid ever shut up? Oh, the poor thing. What else is on? Sonny quick switched his attention to his link, Lauren. He requested, please prepare a list of suggested sources for me to be able to read and understand this sentiment and coding scheme. If I haven't requested it by this time tomorrow, please remind me. Acknowledged, Lauren said. Sonny sighed and looked for any kind of hope from this depressing transcript. The viewers weren't down to 0, at least. He decided to skip to the end and work backward for sentiments coming from any diehards. Here was something very different. Starting from the end credits and repeated many times earlier, it said, Bala? This? Home? Again and again. Bala? This? Home? He wanted to hear the voice of whoever this was, interleaved with Bala's. The word that jumped into Sonny's mind was duet. The data existed, but he might need escalated privilege or something. Very intriguing, but it could wait. Without the ability to read all the other sentiment and coding around these, he could still see consistent patterns standing out. They looked quite different from the quitters. That was what Sonny was calling those losers now. His hope shot way up. He tried to tame it. That was probably the mature thing to do. But the man who had been called immature his whole life wasn't in the mood to pretend. Not about this.
Oh.
That was great.
Yep. So we don't yet know how Tercy got the feed.
You will, I think probably we'll all know.
We will know.
I think, this is feeling to me. You and I had a lovely little chat about, we need an outline.
Yep.
And I will say, I went
Yes.
through an emotional turmoil, and then I realized, why am I directing all of this heat toward Kathleen, of all people?
Well, I've got an afternoon gloriously free, and that's my number one thing that I want to do is sit down with that wonderful outline that you did, weave in all of the strands of my story, and deal with my collection of story cards.
Yeah.
Them completed and uploaded and marked to where they
Yeah.
go. So that's
after we hear your story, I think I'd like to share how that outline came to be,
Oh,
because
good.
it's very much Zettelkasten related.
Oh,
So we'll do that and talk about this process where now the rubber's kind of hitting a different road. We have turned off we've turned off a road where we're just sort of flying things up, and now we're trying to see how could this fit together.
yeah, it's
Exciting.
amazing because we've been at this quite some time, and it's starting to shape up and have a form.
Yeah.
So mine is also a Javi episode, and mine doesn't need too much preamble because it picks up right where the story left off. Guess what? I got to make up the assignment because I needed it because that's where my story was going. It was
Yes.
time for Helen to meet Javi. And of course, Helen is the one who has tables that appeared in her office. She's a fairly new hire at the Henge. She's about to be an empty nester. She's trying to get some kind of a work life going. You know, she worked before the kids came, but she spent her whole life surrounded by homemaking, cooking, family, just being the center of the house, and now she needs to find a new center for her life. So she started working at the Henge, and after getting some routine cataloging jobs, new hire, middle-aged woman, suddenly there were a bunch of tables set up in her office with drawers and drawers and drawers and drawers and drawers and drawers. Well, now we know from Julianne, from Victoria's story, where those drawers came from. We also know from an earlier story of Mel when the drawers and the cabinets were together. So we're going to start putting some of these pieces together. So she's been tasked with scanning them all. And of course, as in past stories, you saw that she discovered that time was very non-objective. No matter how big a task she assigned to herself, she was able to get it done exactly at quitting time. So she always finished a drawer exactly at quitting time, no matter how big or dense or loosely packed the drawer was. So she played games with it at last and scanned just a small section of one drawer, ha 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 ha, and found out 0 time passed on the clock. So, but she left, and with a day with that condition, she didn't know where she left off in the drawer. But that would never happen before because all of her other times she'd exactly finished a drawer at exactly quitting time. So here we are. And we saw how upset she was in the last episode and just kind of cooked her way through sorting out her feelings. So here we are. The following morning, as she left home, Helen was feeling calmer. She was thankful for that. Even so, as she walked to work, everything felt new and unexplored. The ground was wet from a recent rain, and the sun darted in and out of the clouds. Helen dismissed her feelings. Everything's fresh after a rain. She didn't think about it again until she was climbing the steps in the stairwell on her way up to her third-floor office. Though she did this regularly as her chosen form of exercise, today it felt lonely and strange, empty, and even a bit spooky. Of course I'm alone. I'm not connected to the link. The only trouble was she actually spoke the words out loud. Irritated with herself, she pushed the whole question of feelings out of her mind and marched straight to her desk in mental silence. But now she was face to face with another oddness. For the first time since she started the scanning project, Helen had not finished the day on a completed drawer. So where did she leave off? That was the issue of the moment. She'd been so thrown off by the events of the previous afternoon that she just walked out. It was the end of her shift, that was the point, but she was so caught up in her newfound realizations about the flexibility of time that she didn't leave herself any kind of note or even a tipped-up card to mark her spot. Disgusted with herself, she didn't feel she could use company time to find her place. So she took what she thought was a clever approach. She collected a range of cards that she was sure included the spot where she left off, and she printed off the last several pages of her scans. Then she wrapped the cards in the printout with the idea of sorting that mess out over lunch. She scanned the front of the book she had brought to read at lunch with the idea that its colorful cover would be easy to spot later in the scan file, and she'd file any missing cards right there. Then she began scanning cards she was confident had not been previously touched. At lunch, she found an empty table and spread the printout on her left and about 10 of the cards on her right. but it was harder than she thought it would be. She laid out 10 more cards, then 10 more. She wasn't finding anything that lined up. At some point, she was startled to realize that someone was reading the cards over her shoulder, and she turned to face him. A young man with dark hair and slightly wild eyes stared at her. Where did you get those cards? And you are? Helen caught herself asking in a demanding tone with no hint of her usual courtesy. He had the grace to look embarrassed. Sorry, I'm Javi. I work in artifacts, and those cards look just like the ones from the multi-drawer cabinet I was cataloging in the fourth basement. The director said they were too important for me to work on alone and took them. Sorry to lose my manners, Javi, but you startled me. I'm Helen. I also work in archiving, but on the third floor. These cards came from one of dozens of drawers piled on tables in my office. The drawers look like they came from a very old piece of furniture. Helen went on to explain that she had been tasked with scanning all of the cards in all of the drawers. She mentioned that she had lost her place at the end of her shift yesterday, but shared nothing of the strange experiences with time that had resulted in her being so ruffled that she neglected to mark where she left off. When Javi offered help, she agreed eagerly. He focused at once on the code number in the upper right-hand corner of each card. They had seemed nonsensical to Helen. With that as the comparison, they were finally able to match up the final cards previously scanned. But a new mystery arose in the process. The cards and their images were not identical. But I scanned them. It's a photographic process, Helen insisted. I don't know what's going on either, Helen. Maybe there's a bug in the link. With that, they decided to meet again the following day at lunch to begin a study of the differences. Walking home that evening, Helen wondered if this card came under option explore and play or option study and understand. She felt relieved that the vein did not seem to notice her. Now, I have to say that some of the interactive fun was that I passed the draft of this off to Mel, and Mel corrected Javi's voice. So Javi's words are Mel's.
Yeah, Javi was a little too polite in the first version. Now, like he's socially inept and a little bit feral. So we need to
I should have
make
had
him
you
a
read them as well.
That's awesome.
Woo!
That's what I'm counting on when he comes back and says, "What the hell are you doing in my library?" And Alex is like, nothing. I didn't touch anything.
See, I think that so you weren't sure if this would come before or after Kathleen's lunch meeting that she wrote. I think it would come after because Javi has been sulking at home after his cards were taken away from him. So I'm thinking that working with Helen has, rekindled his enthusiasm, and he might have gone back downstairs to look for more clues.
Okay, cool.
Where he'll find an intruder.
Yes.
Right? Well, or alternatively, I was going to have her show up in the lunchroom, so it could work either way, wherever we
Either
need
way.
to get them to.
Yeah.
You do.
Or it can be a little bit of a farce.
Or
One takes the elevator, one takes the stairs.
exactly. That's option 3.
Or like it's, the Henge is like one of these big corporate places where there are 2 different staircases
Right.
for fire protection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are all kinds of details that we're walking out. In my view, coming with the idea of the Henge, that I got from Lynn Kelly.
Mhm.
I feel like there's a lot of it that's earthen.
Oh.
It's kind of I see the whole thing kind of built into side of a hill
Mm.
or something
Oh,
where it's not exclusively earthen, but a lot of it is earthen.
ah.
Mm-hmm.
That's, that's what I'm saying. It's not like this big, it's not a skyscraper. I don't think Lydia had or has those. It
No,
has
it's a
perhaps some
Berkshire
multi-story buildings, but not like it's
down.
there aren't that many people there.
Yeah.
I had a thought about some of the construction of the henge, and I'm going to say the word spoiler because I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, so you can cut it
Okay.
out if necessary.
Yeah.
Um, but what if the oldest part of the henge is actually the whatever space vessel they use to arrive on the planet?
Ooh.
I know that the main one is still up there, but um, they had to get down to the planet somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once they were done, or perhaps after the severing, um,
Yeah. What are we gonna do with this thing?
yeah. And since the henge is for remembrance of things that are no longer useful or used,
Yeah.
uh, it's
Yeah. I don't think I'm inclined to leave that in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, although, connecting those dots, the millions of people who are listening to our podcast may have forgotten by the time we put this all together. Yeah. Um, so about the outline. In episode 30, no, no, Thinking Outside the Box, episode 51, I talked about how I've been creating a sort of a hybrid system for myself and also with the anticipation of collaborating with the rest of the authors. But I really kind of needed it for myself. And the hybrid system is, of course, my Zettelkasten, but also um, the notion of the plot box
Yeah.
that I got from our esteemed Victoria, which is different from the ordering of my cards. My cards in my Zettelkasten are more like by subject matter
Uh-huh.
in the story. There's stuff having to do with the henge. There's the story of the whole buildup of the house that goes
Uh-huh.
on and on and on and on. It's kind of a bit of a through line for a significant part of the early part of the book. And so there's all of that stuff, and I organize it like, well, this is going to need to happen over there, but I don't know when. And so the plot box is what I'm using I move the cards from the what into
Uh-huh.
the when in the
Uh-huh.
plot box. But
Oh.
then this is where I hit the challenge that I discussed in episode 51, thinking outside the box, which is, where did I put
Yeah.
it? So what I have been doing as part of my whole process with my Roanoke cards, I write the card, I create the tagline for the card, then I need to figure out what's the card's address going to be in the subject matter area. And if I have moved the cards over into the plot box, that becomes really difficult. It's becoming increasingly difficult because they're not in that order anymore. So I have scanned every one of my cards. I create so in the scan, I've got just an ordered view of all of the cards in Scrivener.
Okay.
And I'm able to see, so my, 5.5H is the whole thing where all the stuff with the buildup happens.
Uh-huh.
5.5F is having to do with Jenna and her effigy and stuff that happens around that. So I've got all of these things that are starting to get disseminated, but they originally lived. Their home remains in that represented in that binder that's like folders. And then there are other ways that you can do things in Scrivener where you create essentially collections of shortcuts to the main things you've created.
Uh-huh.
And so those collections of shortcuts are exact replicas in the digital realm of the plot box.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
And the outline that I shared is a printout of the outline view in Scrivener of those collections.
Oh, wow.
Cool. Cool.
So it's it's not a click of the button to pull that together. It takes me about a half hour.
Oh,
It's
wow.
absolutely worth doing.
Yeah.
There are parts of it that could be automated if it really became a problem, but right now it's not a problem. And to be able to just like, here's a spreadsheet with everything in order for you to have an idea, this could slot in there. And for
Uh-huh.
me to have an idea, this could slot in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very, very helpful. Now, Victoria, you talked about your process, which is you just sort of daily with your novel, you would just let your fingers do the walking through your plot box.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing that yet, and I feel it's also necessary, but just to get my bearings, to get, to get the thing in an order where it's like,
Yeah.
well, this I can share with other people, and it makes enough sense that we've got something.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the challenge, no doubt. When the story is your own, you can wing a lot of that stuff because you
Yeah,
don't have to, it's not public facing yet. But
yeah,
for what we're doing, with you being the controller for all practical purposes, you have to, yeah, right. You have to be able to show those pieces. Now, I did do early on an Excel spreadsheet that helped me track in very much the way that you're describing early on, just for myself, kind of where things were and how they flowed. And I could just glance at that exactly like you're saying. I could just glance over it and know, okay, wait, this has to go over there and do that process. But if I were doing, let's say, kind of like what we're doing, something that could potentially be more of an epic series, I agree with you 100%. It is brilliant to put that stuff in Scrivener, if not only for the fact that you can move things around in there in a way that you can't in an Excel, but yeah, that's a great solution because then you have it all right there. And yes, it's exportable. That's
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. To Excel.
Yeah.
Which is what
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I did. But the Excel is not, it's like a read-only view for me.
Uh-huh.
The
Yeah.
outline itself, once I had a little trouble with making the outline work the way I thought it ought to. Had got a little
Yeah.
help from the Scrivener forum. It took about a day for everybody to realize they needed to pay attention to what I was saying,
Right.
which is what
Yeah.
happens on user forums. It's like,
Right.
many different variations of it works on my system. It's like,
Yeah.
Right.
you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Move along.
But yeah, it
No,
feels
that's
like,
great.
so
Yeah.
I make the card, I tag the card, I figure out where in the subject matter it's going to go, and it's good enough. It's just normal number letter dash.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and then I index it,
Hmm.
and then I figure out where does it go if I can. I've got
Yeah.
many cards I haven't figured that out with yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a scary box myself,
Yeah.
just giving me the stink eye from over there. I'm like, stop, stop.
Yeah, I'm not nearly that far along. That's why I'm delighted to have an afternoon free today, because I'm just at the spot where I've been writing. When we have a writing challenge, I write. And we had a card making challenge, so I made a card.
Yeah.
But I need to really, we're at the stage now where it's time to begin interleaving and to make my
Mhm.
contribution available in a way that it can fit in the story. Especially since both of my characters I, are kind of isolated individuals. We know that Helen has a family, but we haven't met any of them yet. and we know that, Teresita obviously has a family. Who are they?
Yeah.
I haven't written any of those characters yet. Are they going to know other people? Is she, how, it's not that huge a planet.
Yeah.
Ultimately, everybody knows everybody, is related to everybody after, you could probably do a genealogy of sorts of the community and it wouldn't be that huge. Although there are allusions to other communities.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, we don't know whether everybody in even in other communities is similar minded. Do they have a link too? Are they separate but equal? We have no idea to what extent, these other communities are related or if they're going to have an impact on our story.
Yeah.
Well, there's going to be some impact because Javi comes from one of them.
Oh, okay.
Javi comes from a sort of a splinter community that doesn't do link access from birth or from an early age.
Uh-huh.
It's a adolescent coming of age sort of thing.
Ah.
Which is, totally as things go, you know?
Mhm.
Splinters are not necessarily flaws.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think they can represent community level diversity.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And the community that Javi comes from is going to teach Jenna's community something they don't know from an outsider perspective,
Mhm. Mhm.
and vice versa.
Yeah. For that matter, we don't know anything about Alex's group or family or friends or.
Nope, not yet.
Now, in terms of the overall, Kathleen, you had said we need a timeline. I was like,
Mhm.
do we?
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
Eventually,
eventually.
but
Yeah.
do we need one in order? Do we need a whole thing which doesn't
Mhm.
exist in order to
Mhm.
keep on going?
Uh-huh.
Because somehow we're making stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like figuring out where these individual non-Jenna storylines
Huh?
merge in with hers.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
don't see that as a first mission. I feel like your own stories need to hang together,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
and and then that opens up connective tissue in
Yeah.
Yes.
opportunities.
Yeah. I know for Teresita, she's starting to speak, which she never did. And
Mhm.
so that's going to bring attention to whoever is her caregiver.
Yeah,
And so it will definitely be time to introduce this person, whoever this person
Mhm.
is. And we're going to find out, well, why was it okay in that person's mind that her daughter or sister or whoever this Teresita is never spoke? She has to have
Mhm.
some category that she had placed her into that just said, well, that's the way it's going to be, some diagnosis or something.
yeah,
So,
Mhm.
yeah.
so I do have to thank, you give Sis Clean for her generosity and, Sunny for his interest and whoever got Teresita hooked up with Bala. I want to see Teresita's. Teresita is going to have to make a Bezier belt. She's probably working on one already.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To me, that's what's going on when she's saying Bala, this home, because he's talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
hello, Strand.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that shape
Yeah.
there a home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and you have said multiple times that she responds to rhythm.
Yeah.
She responds rhythmically to rhythm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and she's so he's also in the process of doing that. No, there you get the realization that a Bezier belt is not, a thread weaving pattern. It is not a crochet pattern. It is not a set of instructions. It's a fairly mystical object. And if you don't honor the mysticism at the moment of the connections of the strands, you're not going to have a Bezier belt when you're done. So you have to learn how to feel where the strand goes, how to feel the strand saying yes, no, yes, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I think I'm intuiting that that's why Sonny is so distraught that people aren't giving this a chance, because he knows that if you don't get into it at that level, you can't make a real Bezier belt. You can made a nice little fiber, cinch to wrap around your waist.
Yeah. It might even be beautiful.
Yeah.
That's not
That's
it.
that's something that he refers to in the Herd and the Henge. It's just a term that he uses for that sort of stuff. Foisted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Counterfeit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, and
Bezier belt shaped object.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And going back to last week's episode where we were talking about brain fog and kind of its relationship to the characters in Roanoke, and the card that I had done, I was really talking about um, a question that isn't a question.
Yes.
It's a judgment disguised as a question, and that's the first one that he sees. Who can stand this?
Yeah.
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 And the encoding is going to be interesting.
Yeah. Really. Really.
It's one thing to know everybody dropped, but what was happening in those everybody's when they did? And what was happening in the everybody who didn't?
Yeah.
The one everybody who didn't.
This was the premiere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so, as we are drawing to a close with our episode, I guess I get to be the one to cue me into telling you where you can find us. That's my role here. And when we're not here on YouTube land, we hang out in LiLLiPub.org. And here you will find great discussions, great people, wonderful opportunities to try out your own writing. And can I ask you, Victoria, in the spirit of LiLLiPub.org, to tell our viewers a little bit about the November challenge that you are cooking up for our viewers?
Certainly. So there are actually several now reasonably famous November challenges, and all of them center around writing a super large word count, 50,000 plus, towards a novel. And I love that idea, but at the same time, especially for those of us who are working or who have other commitments, that's a lot of words to write in 30 days. So Kathleen and I started batting around the idea, what if instead we issue a smaller challenge that still gets you into the writing mode, into the writing process, but is totally doable for anyone, whether you've got 3 hours or 3 minutes to spend. And so that is how the Experience Collection Challenge came about. So in my book, Zettelkasten for Fiction Writers, which is coming out in December, fingers crossed, Chapter 9 employs something that I've used forever, which is just a way of turning your writer's eye to the details around you during an average day. So literally all you're doing is collecting an experience. It can be something that's happened, something you're feeling, something you see, smell, taste, whatever's going on. I often, like when I talk to my students about it, I always say, check your experience before you check your phone, because people say, well, I don't have time. Do you have time to check your phone? If you do, when you pick up that device, stop yourself, put it down, and instead grab a note card and take 1 minute and just see, what am I experiencing right now? Is there something that strikes me as interesting or profound or an observation? Whatever it is, put it on a card. So that's what we're doing. Starting on November 1st, we're each going to start building our experience collection. I created a snazzy little book. It's got 4 discs on a disc system, and I just punched my note cards and inserted them in, so I have a dedicated place to collect all those things. However you want to do it, it's entirely up to you. But do please join us, because we will be posting our experiences over in LiLLiPub. And the cool thing is, by harnessing the hashtag functionality, we can then begin to learn from each other's experiences and cards. So for example, if I want to write a scene that takes place in downtown San Diego and I've never been there, I can hashtag San Diego and see if anybody's posted any experiences that I can pull from to write that authentically. So it not only gives us a way to share the things that strike us in our writer's eye and get a conversation going about that, it also allows us to work together to maybe farm ideas or pull details from things that other people might know who can help us inform our own writing. So that, my friends, is the November Experience Challenge. We'll be creating a minimum of 1 card each day, posting it over in LiLLiPub and sharing it together. And then we can talk about what we find and what we get to at the end, which, sneak peek, if you participate in the challenge and you do at least a week-long string of postings, it's on the honor system because we know we can trust you. That, my friends, proves to us that you are in fact a writer, that you are observing your environment with your writer's eye, with another eye toward getting your work done. And we're going to invite you into Writers Boot Camp, where we're going to take all these experiences that we collect, because at that point we'll all have 30, and we're going to turn them into something that you can use. And I'm going to walk you through how to do that. So join the Experience Collection Challenge over in LiLLiPub. 1 card a day, post them in the group. There's a group over there for it. And then when we get to the end of November, we will all march ourselves into Writers Boot Camp, and we'll talk about what in the world we do with all this information and how you use it in your writing.
Whew. And the fun part about, I'm in, by the way. The fun part about the Writers Boot Camp is that there's one and only one admission price, and that's that you did the work. Other than that, it's free. Just the price of your LiLLiPub. So do come join us. And that does it for our episode for today. Bye-bye.
Thanks for the great challenge, Kathleen.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for participating.